Good morning and a very warm welcome. This is the Breakfast Rundown on TV1. I'm Therunee Karunaratne. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Well, the government is set to begin the purchasing of paddy stocks at the guaranteed prices that were announced yesterday. And also the Parliament is scheduled to convene today with a full agenda. We have the details on what exactly will be discussed and debated in Parliament today as well. We also have some good news concerning the tourism sector in Sri Lanka. The number of tourist arrivals last month has reached a record high. We have details on this coming right up as well. And in news overseas, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to visit the United States, where he will be meeting, of course, US President Donald Trump. There is also an update concerning the shooting in Sweden yesterday that saw 10 people dead. Details on these stories and so much more are coming right up on this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown. So let's dive right in. On to the top local news item this morning. The Consumer Affairs Authority says that wholesale warehouses will be open today for paddy purchasing. The chairman of the Consumer Affairs Authority, Manjula Pinnalanda, says that wholesale warehouses will be open in Kilinochchi, Batiklo, Ampara, Kurunegala as well as Putlam. He adds that 5 billion rupees have been allocated from the National Treasury for paddy purchases. Accordingly, paddy stocks will be purchased at the guaranteed prices that were announced yesterday. Yesterday, the Paddy Marketing Board announced the guaranteed prices for purchasing paddy, and according to Minister K.D. Lalkantha, the prices are 120 rupees per kilogram for Nadu paddy, 125 rupees per kilogram for Samba paddy, and 132 rupees per kilogram for Kiri Samba paddy. Now, the Parliament is also scheduled to convene today at 9:30 a.m. under the leadership of Speaker Dr. Jagat Vikramaratne. From 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m., time has been allocated for parliamentary activities related to Standing Orders 22.1 to 22.6. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., time has been set aside for oral questions. From 11 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., time has been allocated for questions under Standing Order 27.2. Following this, from 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., time has been set aside for the debate on regulations under the Intellectual Property Act of Sri Lanka. And from 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., time has been reserved for questions raised by both the ruling party and the opposition during the adjournment debate. Let's move on to some good news this morning. For the second time in Sri Lankan history, the highest number of tourists to visit the country within a single month has been recorded in January 2025. Accordingly, the number of tourists who arrived in the country last month is 252,761. The chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Buddhika Hewawasam, said that the highest number of tourists to arrive in the country since January 2018 was recorded in the past month. In December 2018, the number of tourists who arrived in Sri Lanka was 253,169. However, when comparing with the previous years, the number of tourists who arrived in January 2025 has reached a record high. In January 2018, 238,924 tourists arrived in Sri Lanka, while in January 2024, 208,253 tourists arrived. Now, the highest contribution to tourist arrivals in January this year was from India, and that number stands at 43,375. In addition, a large number of tourists from Russia, the UK, China, Germany, France and Australia have also arrived in our country. The chairman of the SLTDA pointed out that on an average, each tourist spends around 40,000 rupees in Sri Lanka per day. He also noted that there are sufficient hotel rooms available for the tourists arriving in Sri Lanka. We also have some updates concerning the recent Hiniduma and Ambalantoto homicides. First up is the update on the Hiniduma homicide. The Udugama Magistrates Court ordered that the individual who is said to be the coordination secretary of a former minister and was arrested in suspicion linked to the Hiniduma triple homicide to be remanded until the 14th of February. The suspect was taken into custody on the 2nd of this month. Later, the police presented him before the court and requested a 2-day remand order for further investigations to be conducted. The magistrate granted permission for this request, and the suspect was presented before the court again yesterday. After considering the facts presented, the magistrate ordered that the suspect be further remanded until the 14th of this month. The shooting occurred on the night of the 30th of January 2025. That is an abandoned building that was used as a hotel at one point in Mahabodhibatta, Hiniduma. The police said that 2 individuals who arrived on a motorcycle had used a T-56 assault rifle to carry out their shooting. Let's move on to the update of the Ambalantoto homicide. The final rights of the 3 individuals who were attacked and murdered with sharp weapons in Bamini Ambalantoto on the night of the 2nd of February were held yesterday at the Bamini Ambala Public Cemetery. A large crowd of local residents were also present. Our Newsfirst correspondent said that heavy police security was deployed for the occasion. On to the weather update for this morning. The Met Department says that except for a few showers in the Gaul, Mathura, Kaluthara, Ratnapura, Ampara, Mathale and Badura districts in the evening or night, mainly fair weather will prevail over the island. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central, Uber and north central provinces and in the Gaul, Mathura and Kurunegala districts during the morning. Let's move on to the marine weather update as well. Mainly fair weather will prevail over the sea areas of the island. Sea areas of the coasts extending from Colombo to Mannar via Puttalam and from Mathura to Potuvil via Hambantota will be fairly rough at times. Let's move on to news overseas for this morning. The White House says that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit the US next week and meet US President Donald Trump. Other reports say that Modi will attend a dinner hosted by the US President on this 2-day trip. The dates of the official working visit have yet to be announced. Modi will be among the first foreign leaders to meet Trump at the White House during his 2nd term at the Oval Office. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is currently in Washington and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is due this week. Modi and Trump shared warm relations during the US president's 1st term. The White House says that the last week they held a productive phone call and discussed illegal immigration, security as well as trade ties. Analysts say that this will be interesting to see if the bonhomie between the 2 men will help overcome concerns about trade and immigration. Trump has called Modi a great leader, but he has also accused India of charging excessive tariffs. Confirmation of the Indian leader's visit to Washington came shortly after a US military flight deporting about 100 Indian nationals landed in the state of Punjab. On to the second international news item for this morning. This concerns the shooting that was reported in Sweden in an educational institution yesterday that saw around 10 people dead. Swedish police say they are still investigating the motive behind the country's deadliest mass shooting as local media began reporting details about the gunman. The suspect, named in the reports of 35-year-old local man Rickard Andersson, was reported to be a former student of the school in Oribo, a city 157 kilometers west of Stockholm, where the attack took place on Tuesday. 11 people died in the shooting, including the attacker, with at least 6 people injured. Authorities are still yet to release the details about the dead and the injured. Health officials said 3 women and 2 men were in a critical, however stable condition, while another woman was treated for minor injuries. Police declined to confirm the media reporters naming Anderson as the suspect. They have not said how he died, but indicated on Wednesday that he most likely killed himself after an exchange of fire with the police. Police said they are still investigating why the gunman had chosen to attack the Risbergska Adult Educational Center. On to sports news for this morning. The second test of the Vaughan Murali Trophy between Sri Lanka and Australia is set to commence today. The hosts engaged in a practice session yesterday morning at the Galle International Cricket Stadium ahead of the second test today. Sri Lankan opener Therunee Karunaratne will mark an important milestone of 100 tests at today's encounter, but has announced his decision to retire from international circuit after the second test. The second test between Sri Lanka and Australia will commence at 10 a.m. today at the Galle International Cricket Stadium. Well, those are this morning's top stories that we brought to you on the Breakfast Rundown. You can join us once again tomorrow at 7 a.m. right here on TV1 for more of the very latest from here at home and around the world. Until then, take care. Have a wonderful day ahead.